Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. This is Michael Vasquez of MV Consulting Incorporated, and you can also see me on the Binghamton Political Examiner, Binghamton Political BuzzExaminer.com. And thank you for joining me. I'm at the VFW Post 1449 in Endicott, New York, and we're going to be speaking with Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney momentarily. Thank you. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. My name is Michael Vasquez, and we have an opportunity today to speak with Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney of the 101st Assembly District, who's going to be speaking with us. We caught her at one of her visits in Broome County at the Endicott VFW 1449. And we're just going to take a few moments to speak with her and find out how things are going. And with that, let me start off. How are you today?
Great. It's a great day. Just spent a whole day in Albany, fighting the good fight, trying to get some bills done, trying to go after the dysfunctional legislature, and fighting some bills. Today was the Spirit of 76 bill that we are fighting for in the Republican side, and we have some Democratic support in the Senate side, which means that out of 150 members of the State Assembly, 76 members agree that they sponsor a bill, that bill should come before the vote. So for years, under the dictatorship of Sheldon Silver, who's now facing charges and facing jail time after his conviction, we have bills with 130 members, 100 members, and they still wouldn't let them out of the floor to vote because Sheldon Silver, one man, decided that. So we're hoping that this bill can pass as part of the newfound reforms to Albany and giving the people a chance, giving the people the right to vote and use their representative government, and their representatives can actually say, we want to pass this initiative. So that was something we worked on today. We're calling it the Spirit of 76, based on harkening back to our founding and our ability to promote and to have a representative democracy. So exciting because we sort of have the same thing in Congress. Yeah. We have a situation where the leadership gets to decide what bills come to the floor and who gets to vote. We want an up or down vote on things. We want the people's representatives to have a voice and to have be able to vote yes or no, not to be protected or held up by leadership. So that's something I stand for as a person who believes in take my oath seriously, to uphold the Constitution of the United States and also the Constitution of So that's the exciting stuff going on in Albany today. So we're here at my favorite kind of place, is a veterans event. My son is an active duty Marine right now. He's a first lieutenant. It's very exciting for me to come to any veterans event, whether it's a VFW, American Legion, or anything we can do to support our vets. I'm always there.
Well, I know you've been very active with the vets. Let me ask you, let's start off with, obviously there's a lot of questions that are going on. There's a lot of activity that's been happening. Even today, there were some announcements. So let's get right into that.
Okay.
In November, you were the first, and you are the only person who's running for the New York 22nd District race that announced before Representative Hanna decided that he's going to retire. Actually, you were a month ahead of him on that.
Right. November 17th, I announced that I was going to challenge Richard Hanna again.
Right. And you stepped into the race, and you are the current front runner going forward.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, how has the process of being in a race, how is the process of being the front runner and the status of the race at this moment? How is it going?
I think it's going very well. As you know, as I just said, I announced on November 17th. By December 20th, Richard Hanna decided he announced he wasn't going to run. Caused a lot of flurry of activity and a lot of people who decided, oh, now that the seat's open, there's not an incumbent in there, I think we're going to run. And a few people have thrown their names in, and now some of those people have reeled it back, and they're not going to be running. So we're back to kind of a exciting situation. Who's going to actually run? I'm in it. I was in it from the beginning. I'm not putting my finger up to see which way the wind's blowing. I'm running because I want to help the people of this community, and I want to stand for something in Congress just like I have in Albany. And I'm going to continue to fight that battle. And on behalf of our constituents, I think it's something that we need to stand for something, not wait till the opportunity presents itself. and then not run against an incumbent. And as I said last time, people were saying, oh, geez, you're running against an incumbent. But I recall and I remind people that the Constitution of this country states that the Congress shall run for office and be elected every second year. It doesn't say the incumbent shall be re-elected until he or she decides to retire. So the people have a chance and a choice to vote for someone, and I offered the people a choice in 2014, and I'm offering them a choice again. And now that I've pushed the envelope, I think people are starting to jump in now. I think it's exciting. I think people having a choice on both the Democrat and the Republican side is going to be great for our representative democracy and our constitutional republic, which is what we really have. But I think it's going to be a really exciting race. I think it's going to be fun. I hope people get involved. A lot going on with the presidential side on both sides, on primaries on both sides, and I think it's going to be a great race. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, let me actually brought in a lot of things there, but I'm going to go in a different direction.
Okay.
Let me ask you, one of the big questions has obviously been that the economy is, everyone's worried about the economy. New York State especially, we're looking at jobs, we're looking at exodus. Now, you have a history on dealing with government spending, the economy, and jobs. How do you look to transfer your experience to Congress?
Great. Well, first of all, I'm over 50. I hate to admit that as a woman, but I own a family business. We have a manufacturing facility that's in Sherburne, New York. It was started in Norwich, New York, which is in Chenango County in the heart of the 22nd Congressional District, and also started in Hamilton, which is in Madison County. We've consolidated into Sherburne. The business has been, since 1946 we've had the business, but we continue to run a manufacturing concern, a very rare type of business in New York State in light of the regulatory burden, the tax burden. Today, New York State came out and the Tax Foundation determined that New York is in fact the highest tax state in the nation. We have the second highest energy burden. We have some of the highest burdens as far as regulations against our business community. And now the governor and many want to impose a $15 minimum wage, which we want to see all of our employees do really well, and we want to see everyone make a high wage. But the reality is that a mandate from government to say that we must pay $15 with all the burdens that we pay in addition makes us less competitive as a nation. And so for me as a business person, the economy is really important, and for people to have jobs. And one of the things that I stand for is to try to keep as many jobs, not only in New York State, but also in the United States, and provide quality jobs for our workforce. And there's been some issues on this in the past. We've had NAFTA, we've had some trade agreements that have been passed that are under the guise of so-called free trade, and we're all free traders. We all like free enterprise. We all like the entrepreneurial, encouraging entrepreneurs. But what many of these deals are really unfair trade. They're not free trade. And that's something I stand for, and I'd like to see us get back to the notion of keeping our jobs here in New York and in keeping our jobs in the United States instead of sending all these manufacturing jobs overseas. We love New York. We love being here. Our employees are fantastic. We have the best employees probably in the nation, but we don't want to lose them to companies that are in other parts, other states and other countries. So we have to do what we can to preserve those jobs here, and that's one of the reasons I'm running for Congress.
Okay. Let me ask you something.
There's a lot there, but
there's a lot there.
But it's a complex issue, but it's a very important issue in our
Absolutely, it's a complex issue, but I'm going to ask one aspect of that.
Right.
And I've asked this of, to an extent, from Mr. Phillips, where I didn't get an answer. I asked it of Mr. Price recently, and he had an interesting answer, and I want to make sure I ask you as well. We try and make sure this is a balanced result.
And I love questions and debates, so tell Mr. Price that I am happy to debate him, and Mr. Phillips anytime, any place, because I love to debate. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I will definitely pass that on. But the question would be about the H-1B visas, the H-2B visas, the recent omnibus that was passed.
Right.
Obviously, that bill was it increases the number of foreigners who will be able to get American jobs under the omnibus on the H-2B visas. And in 2014, and even now, there is a lot of question about H-1B visas, where STEM jobs are going to foreigners as well. How do you feel about that?
My biggest concern with that is just going directly at our workforce. So we're gonna, if we're gonna increase the amount of visas, and I understand there's a difference, there's skilled workers and there's unskilled workers, but if we're gonna allow immigrants to come in and take the jobs away from our skilled and unskilled workers, we're gonna be displacing our own people for the sake of foreigners. And by the way, part of the reason that these big multinational and globalist countries are behind this, the U.S. Chamber and others are behind this type of initiative, is because they can get cheap labor, cheap foreign labor, to displace our good local American labor. And I think that's a bad thing. And I wouldn't support that as a member of Congress. I would like to see us keep our own workforce here. I know many people don't really understand the issue. It's a little bit kind of in the weeds. But when you allow foreign workers to come in and take away the jobs of Americans, I don't think that is the way we need to go. As conservatives, we talk about, and what we stand for is preserving this nation, preserving freedom, individual rights, and preserving the rights of our workers to have access to labor and access to jobs. And this H-1B1 visa really just caters to the globalists and people who don't preserve and care about the sovereignty of America and the sovereignty of our workers and being able to have our own jobs. And so I didn't support the omnibus because it increased the number of H-1B, actually H-1B and H-2B visas. And I think that could be devastating to our workforce here in the United States and New York.
Oh, absolutely.
And I support you. I know you're supportive of that too. So I think
that's
you
a
and
classic issue.
I have researched this issue. We are not afraid to talk about it. And I think and actually I would recommend Michelle Malkin's book, Sellout, because it talks exactly on that issue.
Oh yes, and as some of the readers may know, that was something I
That's
highlighted.
a pitch for Michelle Malkin.
Michelle came up a year and a half after I brought up the issue.
Yeah.
So there you go. Give me a credit there.
Okay.
And by the way, if
And
you
you talked about it over almost 2 years ago. Excellent job.
And if you hear and if anyone notices there's some noise, yes, this is a live event.
We're
This
live,
is going
yeah.
on
Yeah.
live at a VFW.
They're over on the other side, but yeah.
So don't hold it against me. It's not me.
No.
We have real people here.
People who have served this country honorably,
Absolutely.
by the way.
And
Yeah.
God bless them. Let them make
Yeah.
their noise. Let me ask you, and since we're talking about the military, we're in a VFW. Your son is in the service as a Marine.
Yeah.
And he's serving honorably. Let's talk about the military, and not generally on the military, but more broadly international policy, which is an issue for 2017. ISIS is obviously a problem. It's affecting everyone in terms of national safety and concerns there. Probably the two biggest issues on that right now have been the Iran nuclear deal and...
A disaster.
Okay, that's part of one of the questions.
Okay.
Is it a disaster or
Yeah.
not? The second question would be in reference to the Syrian refugees, which is ongoing right now in Congress, and a question that a lot of people have very different opinions on. So, taking either one first, how do you feel about those issues?
Yeah. Well, the Iran deal was a terrible deal. It was a devastating deal. Even though they claimed that we were going to lose anyway, if we were strong, we had a strong military and we were strong economically, and Obama had taken a leading role in Syria, and we had the red line, and they kept crossing it, and we never enforced it. And so, to me, we've weakened our military. We need to be strong. I mean, I strongly believe in that. Our government, our federal government, was created for two main purposes when we were the colonies. We needed to have a strong national defense and border security. So you're hitting on those two issues when you talk about the Constitution. A strong military and a strong policy on foreign policy against ISIS and other different groups that are going to try to destroy the United States and our freedom. We need to take a strong position on that, and we haven't done that. The Iran nuclear deal allows one of the greatest sponsors, the biggest sponsor in the world of terrorism, in sponsoring ISIS and providing them with money to unleash $100 billion that we had wrapped up in a freeze of Iranian assets, and to allow Iran to now come in and use those assets and use that, sponsor more terrorism against the United States. I would never have supported the deal. Secondly, we need to destroy ISIS. We need to get rid of them. They are a problem for Syria. The Syrian refugees, many of them are Christians, and many of them are actually moderate Muslims, and Muslims who are looking for refuge that are being killed as well. However, because Syria is run by Assad, I mean, there's no real way of us for verifying who are these Syrian refugees. And though we are welcome to refugee communities in the United States, and particularly in Utica, I might add, we can't vet them properly, and we can provide safe haven for them overseas and in various places where they can be freed from persecution in Syria, but they can also be vetted properly to ensure that ISIS and other criminal elements and people who are interested in destroying the United States are not infiltrating the ranks, because we don't have any control over that as far as an immigration policy goes. And it has already been proven with some refugees that they picked up in California. 2 of these Syrian refugees have turned out to be ISIS members who were just hiding among the ranks of so-called Syrian refugees. We know the Syrian people are good people, are Syrian Christians. Many of them are coming here, migrating through family members. We don't want to discourage them from being with their families, but we have to go through a vetting process. And until we gain the strength and the credibility of a process that can help us, we are putting our own American citizens at risk until we can do that. So I say find a safe haven for them, and then when we've reached a point where we can do that, then we can find a location for them, either as refugees or in other countries. But right now I don't think we should be taking refugees from countries which are run by Al-Qaeda, or run by ISIS, or run by terrorist regimes. And that's why I support the Rand Paul, Ted Cruz bill, which was defeated, by the way, 89 to 10 in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have been, but it was a good bill. It was a reasonable compromise, and I think it's something we should consider.
Let me change this up
Okay.
for a moment. And let's take a different look at the race from a different point of view. One of the big questions that I've heard from your opponents, from others out there, is your record. And they have made allusions in 2014 to a lack of a record.
Lack of a record? I don't think anyone's made that claim.
They've made it, at least
Well,
to
what
me.
do you mean by that? Because that's vague.
Let me clarify.
Because that's not what I'm getting on the campaign trail. But
I've heard some of them make mention.
there's been a smear campaign that was run against me with inaccuracies. You know, like I support Sheldon Silver or something like
Well,
that.
that's one
which
of
is
the
an
things.
absurdity. You know.
That's one of the things that I've heard,
Right.
and I wanted to address.
Yeah.
That you're a secret Democrat. That you don't.
Lifelong Republican.
Okay. And they've made it.
With a very solid Republican record. I mean, I'm still running since I was elected in 2010 in the New York State Assembly. I won the Conservative of the Year award in 2011. I continue to be one of the top conservatives in New York. And one thing I stand for more than even just being a conservative is I'm against the corruption. And I've stood against corruption. And I said that I was going to do that in 2010, and I've continued to fight that. As far as Sheldon Silver goes, in 2012, I was the first elected official, legislator, anyone to call out Sheldon Silver on his secret payoff deal that he did with using taxpayer money to pay off a sexual harassment claim against a member in our House. Everyone was afraid of him. He's the kingpin, he's the powerful guy. I came out the very first person in August of 2012 and said, no, you, Sheldon Silver, who are elected speaker by the members of our House, presided over our ethics committee, and you violated our ethics law. That means you need to resign as the Speaker of the House, someone who's voted on by members, not by the public, in his role as Speaker. And I came out and demanded that resignation, and I've continued that fight against Sheldon Silver and the corruption. And little did I know, as time went on, that Sheldon Silver would prove to be even more corrupt, and was finally indicted and then convicted, and now facing sentencing for outrageous corruption in New York State, along with our Senate Majority Leader. So as far as that goes, I've heard this, oh, you voted with Sheldon Silver 83% of the time. Well, by the way, I vote less with Sheldon Silver than anyone else in the House. And what people don't understand, that's just an Albany insider knowledge thing. So most members probably vote with Sheldon Silver. The Democrats probably vote with him almost 100% of the time. and most of the Republicans probably are in the high 90s. So what people don't understand is New York is a home rule state, which means that of the 2,000 bills that we usually see in the state assembly, anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000, probably only a couple thousand of them are or a couple hundred of them are substantive, and they're home rule bills, meaning that we simply vote on, say, the Village of New York Mills, needs to get our permission as a state organization or state assembly to, for example, use lever voting machines in a local election. So yes, would I vote with Sheldon Silver on that? Of course, we both vote yes. But what people also need to know is there has never been a bill defeated in the state assembly in 34 years. Every bill has a yes vote. So who has the most no votes? Me and a handful of others in the state assembly on the Republican side. So it's one of those inside baseball manipulations, and it's really a smear campaign. So I actually vote less with Sheldon Silver. I have a solid credentials on, from the Conservative Party on substantive bills that we pass in the Assembly. And what many people don't know is that we pass, hundreds of bills that are one-house bills. They never have a Senate sponsor. They're for a member, in their district. And we pass those bills for 15 and 20 years, even though I haven't been there that long. But the bills that I'm voting on today have been voted on for 15 and 20 years. They just get either from the same member or passed on. So that was a fallacy and really an abuse of the system in Albany and trying to use that against me to distort the truth to the public. So that smear campaign is something that is absurd. But thanks for giving me the chance. I know it's sort of a long answer, but
well, no,
yeah.
I want you to have the chance to
People
address.
should know what that is.
I want you to have a chance to address some of the things that are being said. They're putting it out in 30-second commercials.
Silly, yeah. Oh yeah, I vote with Sheldon Silver.
Chance.
Anyone who knows anything, whether you talk to Fred Dicker from the New York Post, who's the dean of the Albany Press Corps, or anyone who's a fighter for, against corruption, anyone knows that I am probably the single most vocal and most active person against the corruption, and this particularly Sheldon Silver in Albany. So it's an actually absurd position. It was a false flag campaign that was run to try to portray me somehow as a liberal, which is absurd. But anyway.
Well, no, that explains a lot.
But people should know that they, look up my voting record and see. The Conservative Party wouldn't rank me so high if I were a Sheldon Silver devotee. Let's put it that way.
Well, let's look at something totally different.
All right.
We're about to go into the petition season, and we're going to have, which is going through 8 counties.
Right.
You've been through the process before. In fact, you're the only person, the only candidate, and the only potential candidate that's actually been through this process.
Or been in a primary.
Actually, yeah.
Or won an election.
Yeah, of any of them right now, that's absolutely
Well,
true.
Dave Gordon won one election. He won a county legislative seat in
And
2011.
it has lost 2 others before. Yes.
Yeah, no, he's
So,
lost 6, but that's all right.
so you do your homework, and unlike
Yeah.
everyone else I've spoken to so far, they're actually willing to mention their names, which is actually interesting.
Yeah.
You're aware of the race,
Yeah.
so that's good. And I was going to go somewhere with that, and I completely
You were going to
lost
talk
my thought.
about,
Give me a second. Well, why I think of that? Let me ask you. A lot of people are wondering about the north-south divide. There's the northern part of the district, Utica, Oneida County, Herkimer, and the southern part here in the southern tier.
Okay.
And a lot of people say, well, there are 2 different sides, and the race is fractured because of that. How do you feel about that north-south divide? Does it exist? Does it matter?
I mean, really, this is the 22nd Congressional District is a chance for the people of this region to elect someone who represents them all, who stands for our values, who has a proven record of fighting for conservative constitutional principles. And that's who I am, and that's what I've always done. And I fight against corruption. I'm not afraid to take on the status quo, Democrat or Republican. I'm out there to represent the people. I'm not a career politician. I'm in my 50s. I didn't get elected and take my oath of office until I was 50. I'm a lawyer. I run my family business, and I still own my family business, and I'm not in this to do anything other than to try to restore our constitutional republic and stand for something. And somehow standing for our Constitution, which is one of the most liberal documents created in the history of man, makes you an extremist. It's not. It's what makes it fair, what provides robust debate and discussion about where we stand as a people, and accepting opposing views, whether you're a liberal, you're a conservative, you're middle of the road. All those views need to be considered and represented, and that's what I do as an elected official, and that's why I win overwhelmingly. You know, I'm always facing a primary against a Republican or some Republican challenger, but I always represent all of the people in my district, and I do whatever I can to help them and to make sure that they have a voice, regardless of where they stand in this constitutional republic.
Well, and thank you, because you helped me remember
Oh, okay, now
the
you
question I
remember?
was going to ask,
Okay.
which is also aligned with what we were just speaking about, which is the question that comes up: can you work with the other side? You obviously have a very strong Republican voice. You have a very strong conservative voice on many issues, and some are saying, well, we need compromise.
We need to reach across the aisle.
That's the word. That's the
so
common
I'm
word.
a member of the New York State Assembly, which is there are 150 members in the New York State Assembly. It's currently 110 to 40. I'm one of the 40. I have over 70 bills that have passed. I have numerous other bills that have passed without my name on them because there's no pride in ownership as a member of the Republican Conference. We can't get bills passed. We haven't had a major bill passed in the New York State Assembly since we lost the majority in 1974. So, do I have to reach across the aisle? I reach across the aisle to find common ground. I don't compromise our principles or our values. I don't compromise the principles of what our country was founded on, whether they're Republican or Democrat, however you want to view them. So, yeah, I can work with a lot of people. I have dozens and dozens of bills with Democrats. I can't get a bill passed in the State Assembly without Democratic support. So, yeah, you know, that is just one of those hysterical kind of claims, oh, she can't work with people because she stands for conservative principles. That's not true. Many conservatives, including me, have a lot of legislation that gets passed in the State Assembly. Now, do I get to be the prime sponsor on it? No, I have to be a co-sponsor. But again, there's no pride in ownership. We do what we have to do to make sure that our constituents are served. And so, you know, I don't compromise principles, but I do make sure that when it's bills or when we need something for our district, we take care of it. And that's going to be the same. I'm going to do the same thing in Congress. I'm not going to vote to raise the debt ceiling. I'm not going to vote to do some of these extreme things that our former congressman did or some of our current Republican congressmen do. We need to finally stand up and force the Democrats to make those hard votes. We don't need to surrender. Compromise is great, and I support it. Surrender is not acceptable.
I'm just checking on the time.
We got to hurry because
Yeah, I was just about to
waiting
say.
for us.
I know. I was just checking on the
Yeah.
time, but let me finish up with this. Obviously, there's 1,000 more questions I could ask, and I would love to ask
We got
them.
lots of weeks left.
But
to
we
do
do have
that.
plenty of time. Let me just end it with this: that for those people who have not seen your 2014 campaign, they haven't looked online, they haven't looked you up
Right.
yet, which are both possible. And you do have a website, which
ClaudiaForCongress.com.
Congress.com. And actually, I have to add in there, it is the only website that exists right now of any of the candidates that actually has issues on it.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to update that.
It's a pet peeve of mine, and so I
Yeah,
just
we're
want
gonna. Well, we're gonna put everything out there. That website's gonna be filled with all kinds of positions, issues, anything a voter could possibly want to know. They can contact me directly too. You can just send Claudia at ClaudiaForCongress.com, and you can ask me a question directly, and I will answer it. I've been answering direct messages from constituents and interested voters for the past several weeks. So,
Well,
go ahead.
let me ask this then, as the last question.
Last question.
Last question is going to be just, what would you say to the new people who are just hearing about the race, or just looking at it? What could you tell them about you and why they should support you?
This is an unusual year, but it's timely here. I got into politics because I was frustrated with politicians just telling me one thing and doing another. This is our year. If you're a grassroots person or you're just a person that's frustrated, I hate to say angry because I don't know how angry people are, but you want to have your voice in government heard. You want politicians to stop saying one thing and doing another. This is the year. I'm the person that has come out of the woods, basically, taken the risk as a business person, and I'm willing to make those hard choices and willing to advocate for us. And I think that we all can do this together. We have an opportunity this year to really stand out and really elect someone who is not going to be part of the status quo, but is also going to work with everyone in Washington to try to change the dynamic there, to try to finally restore ourselves to the constitutional republic, stop having leader domination like we have in New York and like we have in Washington. We have all kinds of crazy people at the top of the Republican and the Democratic primary right now for the presidential race. Who knows how that'll shake out? But all I can say is what it shows is that people are frustrated and they're speaking and they're going to get out there and vote. And I think they have a great opportunity to have someone like me who is proven. I've been elected, I've been proven, and not very long. I've only been in office for 5 years. But I stand for something. I know what it's like to make a payroll. I know what the issues are. And I'm going to fight for every one of our constituents, not to win over their hearts and minds, but to represent them strongly and take a strong position in Congress for us and not for politicians.
Well, I thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I know it's been, we are sorry to take you away from the various people here, the constituents here in the VFW, but we do want to thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for keeping the fight up. Thanks. Keep up the Vass consulting there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Michael Vasquez does a great job talking about the issues in our area.
Oh, I'm going to keep that in.
You do. You talk about it. You tell the truth, and that's what you're going to get from me.
All right.
You know, you may not like it, but I'm going to tell you the truth.
All right.